Ever feel stuck, waiting for the perfect moment to move forward? In this episode, we dive into the power of the word go, a small word with massive momentum. Sometimes obedience isn't about waiting, it's about stepping out in faith, even when fear tries to hold you back. You've prayed, you've planned, and you've prepared. Now it's time to move. Your go could be the key to someone else's breakthrough. Let's talk about stepping boldly into purpose and calling. Hello again, everybody. I'm Andy Thornton. Welcome back to our community. This podcast is sponsored by I've Decided in the Greater Peoria Family YMCA. Joining me today is Marcellus Sommerville. Hi, Marcellus.
Hi.
Marcellus is the president and CEO of Friendship House of Christian Service, right?
Yes,
Peoria.
sir. Yes,
How are
sir.
things going?
Things are going really well. We're really excited about the new outdoor facility that we're putting together and
That's right.
all the summer stuff that we got going on or leaning up to.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So
Yeah, you guys really ramp up programming in the summertime, don't you?
yeah. We think it's a great time for kids to get out and play and, be exposed to different things.
Mm-hmm.
They go to the pool twice a week, fun activities, zoos and things like that.
Yep.
Explore Peoria.
How many kids are you going to see on a daily basis at Friendship House this summer?
We don't have the number yet, but if history repeats itself, we could see upwards of 175, 200.
That's a lot.
That's a lot.
And that's not a real big building.
No,
that
that's
you
why
guys
we get
work
them
out
out.
of.
We get them out the building. So a typical day would be them, eating breakfast and then
Right.
after breakfast doing some little projects, some little games and stuff like that. And then, depending on the level, they would go swimming. They would go to forest nature kind of park and things like that.
Yep.
So
they really get an opportunity to kind of explore the city
Yeah.
and learn about what the city has to offer. And
absolutely.
I think in your program, one of the things that's neat is that you get the kids involved in what I'll call community service work,
Yeah.
right? They're out helping.
Yeah.
Doing some different things in the community, whether it's cleaning up a neighborhood
Yeah.
or things like that. So talk a little bit about that part of your program.
It's something we implemented a few years ago. We think it's important. Science, technology, engineering, art, and mathematics is definitely important when it comes to the educational component, but the human service side of what we do in our programs and just what we should do as individuals
Right.
is important. So establishing understanding of that at a young age means a lot. And so we added service on the back of it.
Yep.
So it stands for STEAM's Academy. And just like you stated, kids go out, they pick up the neighborhood. If there's some homeless individuals who need water, they'll hand out waters and just giving them a foundation for giving back at a young age.
That's awesome. It's so important for sure. I had something else I was going to say and it completely left my mind. So I guess that's my cue to move forward, right? So we're going to talk about the word go, right? 2 letters really seems a little bit insignificant sometimes when you think about it, but it's an important mindset, I think, for us to have. In Kim's article this week, described it. It's an action verb, right? It directs us to do something, right? To be involved. And when you think about it from a biblical perspective, and I know you spend time in the Bible quite a bit, and you have that perspective, we're commanded to go and do things, right? And there's plenty of examples in the Bible where God commanded people to do things that seemed really hard to imagine, hard to believe. Think about Noah.
Right.
Told Noah to build an ark, right? Noah's building this ark. He really didn't have full understanding of what was going to happen, right? So he had to go ahead and do that and step out in faith, not really knowing what was going to come after that. And there's a lot of examples like that. And I think in our lives, we're faced with decisions that we have to make sometimes, and we don't always know what the outcome is going to be, right?
Right.
And when you think about the word go and how we use that in our professional life or our personal life, it can be challenging sometimes to do that. And I think it does require some faith. But oftentimes we wrestle with the opposite of faith, which is fear, right? Because we don't know what the outcome is going to be.
Right.
So is there Is there any time in your life, professional life, personal life, where you know that God was telling you to do something and you resisted it?
Yeah. Obviously, there's been moments where you've had, different challenges, different moments, or different situations that come about, and you're like, that's not fitting for me. That's not ideal for me.
Right.
What draws me back is, when you're going through contract negotiations
Yeah.
and you're talking to potential team or GM who wants you there, and you're like, is that really the spot for me?
Right.
And then you choose not to go, and you go to a different location, and it turns out to be one of the most challenging situations you've ever been in from a basketball standpoint. Yes, the financial side of it was good, but it has other faults and things like that. And then the team that you felt like you were probably should have chose is excelling.
Yeah.
And so, of course, you have these battles back and forth with yourself, but at the end of the day, like you said, it's a matter of faith. It's a matter of perspective, understanding that regardless of how you choose to go, God's always putting you in a position to learn.
Yeah.
He's always pushing you in a position to steadfast on His word and lean on not your own understanding, but His.
Yeah.
And whether it's personal benefiting me or my family, it's always a lesson in there, regardless of the outcome.
Right. Right. So that example that you were sharing, I'm assuming that's a personal experience of yours, right?
Personal experience.
Thinking back to that time when you were playing professional basketball overseas, you were pretty young.
Yeah.
Right. You were in your young 20s when you started that. After you left Bradley. For those of you who don't know, Marcellus was an excellent basketball player at Bradley University.
Yeah.
And here at Peoria High too for many years. So a long success playing basketball, and I'm thinking to myself, as you're describing that, and I knew it was you. I wanted to make sure other people related to that, but even being faced with those challenges now that you're a grown man, you got a family, you've experienced life, it probably wouldn't be as difficult as what it was then when you were so much younger.
Right, I would agree with that. And then on the flip side, I've been a part of, having to make a decision in 4 hours. Right, I had just tore my meniscus, and I had finished my rehab, and right after Christmas, I had a decision to make in 4 hours. It was the only team that called, and it's like, do I wait for more options, right? Or do I listen, pray? And honestly, my wife, I went to go work out. My wife, I come back, Brooke's like, I think you should take this job. I've prayed about it, and I know you don't agree with all the, the benefits and things like that, but I think it'll be a great situation for us. And I was like, I'm a numbers guy, so I started looking at the numbers, and I'm like, do I really want to do this? And then I end up taking it. It was probably the best 5-6 months of my life,
really,
as a professional basketball player. We ended up winning a championship in there. So what I thought was going to be hindering to my career in terms of taking less than the value, ended up being a great situation and a blessing. After the championship, I ended up extending for 2 years, and
with that same team,
with a different team, but at the same time.
So that opportunity gave you the opportunity to extend your career even longer. And if you didn't take that, who knows what would have happened.
That's right. And I was the one fighting the fear of, do I really want to be in that situation financially? And will it hurt us? And, how will my body react after coming back from an injury, all of that stuff. So, but the wife was right there to say that it was the right decision along with God.
So let's talk a little bit about that process of now that you're older, you've experienced a lot more in life. You have kids, you have a son who's playing basketball at a very high level, and you're able to kind of lean back probably to those experiences to help shepherd and guide him. But what things have you learned about how you approach situations like that today from your past, and how do you work through those challenges of setting fear aside and leaning more into your faith?
I think the best way for me to explain it is I always try to approach it with a sense of gratitude. And honestly, I said this the other day to someone, I get a chance to, right? I have the opportunity to, for example, take a contract. There's a lot of guys out here without them.
Yeah.
And here I am in this situation. I have the opportunity to wake up with a positive attitude. It's really comes from some of those negative or fearful moments where you tap into that. But today, I have that same attitude. I get the chance to be the father of Lathan. I get the chance to be in situations that most people would dream of.
Yeah.
And so a sense of gratitude attitude is what puts me in a space and place mentally to make better decisions.
Yeah, I would agree with that. And I appreciate you sharing that. Yeah. One of the things that Kim pointed out in her article, and I didn't really think about it until I read this a whole lot, but the decisions that we make in our life impact others, right? And when we stall in making a decision, there's sometimes some negative impacts that creates for other people. And in her article, she used the analogy of being at a four-way stop with other cars and nobody wants to move, right? And somebody needs to move in order for the others to make progress.
Right.
And I didn't really think about that a whole lot until I read this article, but there's a lot of truth in that. When we resist, whatever decision is that we're trying to make, when we resist and we delay, I think we forget sometimes about how that's impacting others, whether it be our wife, our spouse, our kids, our close friends, or people at work that we work with or who work for us. And taking that holistic approach to understanding that I need to do something here, I think is an important perspective to take. And having that perspective that you just described, or that attitude of gratitude, to help guide and shape your decision making, gives you the courage to maybe lean into your faith a little bit more because you're intentionally trying to create that perspective. But do you think about that much and how it impacts others?
I do, but at the same time, I'm human, so that time lapse can happen, and sometimes it does, like when you don't react or make a decision quick enough. But at the same time, I'm one that's always looking for, I guess you could say, signs or just feeling of especially when I have to make big decisions.
Yeah. You're faced with those quite a bit, I'm sure, being the CEO of Friendship House.
Yeah. But at the same time, it's leaning in when you're faced with those decision making moments.
Can you think of, just thinking back to the experiences you were sharing about in your professional basketball days, can you now look back and see how the decision making process was impacting others around you at that time and your family? I mean, you shared the story about your wife saying, you need to do this. I think you need to do this, and kind of pushing you forward in that way. But any examples come to mind that you can share about there?
I mean, of course, there's several, but just I would think about, like, when I first started playing, I would jump from team to team. Yeah. Whoever's paying me the most. Yeah. That's how I thought, right? And then it became, okay, I got 2 kids, 3 kids. Okay, now whoever has the best environment, resources around the team, who's going to, what's the schooling look like? Right. What's the housing look like? Yeah. It just changes.
The environment for your family.
It automatically
becomes more than basketball.
Yeah, and that's truly what it became, more than basketball.
I think one of the things that, and we've talked a little bit about this throughout, but let's dig into this a little bit. One of the things that holds us back, I think, from making decisions sometimes is just the fear of the unknown. We don't always know what's the outcome going to be. And I like to control. All right, I have this innate ability. I want to know that the decision I'm making is going to be the right decision, and that's just not realistic. sometimes, but not knowing the end result sometimes, which I think is a fear, an act of fear, holds us back. How often do you find yourself wrestling with that fear?
Often.
Yeah.
Like you said, I'm human too, and I try to control my controllables in that I have a decision to make, and that's a part of my controllable. And sometimes I do battle, if it's fitting for the collective, is it fitting for our organization, is it fitting for our community? And you're channeling all these different things, and I have them for sure.
Yeah. So I would expect you to, right? And I do too. I think we're not being honest with ourselves if we don't admit to having some of
Absolutely.
that. Nobody has figured that out except one individual, right? And he died on the cross for our sins. So what strategies do you use to help overcome those situations or avoid those situations? Right. You talked a little bit earlier about that attitude of gratitude, and I think that's a great strategy that probably helps you there. But can you go beyond that a little bit and talk about, what things you do to help you work through that process to get fear out of the way so that you can lean into your faith?
Yeah, obviously, you have a team of individuals that you can lean on, or, and you go through that process together. Whether that's with my staff or whether that's with my wife, depending on personal or professional. And then, you have your mentors that you lean into, and ultimately, the best mentor is God. And if you can find some quiet time to just talk to him and listen, and, ultimately you usually make the best decision in the moment. Does it always come out the way you vision it? No. But then now that's a different process. How do you react to the difference of it not coming out to what you expected? Or how do you react to it if it comes out in a more positive way than you expected it, right? Are you boasting? Are you going to be humble about it? Are you going to, how do you react in all of this when it comes to just putting your best foot forward,
right?
Just going, in a sense.
Yeah, that's the key right there. I think that you just hit the nail on the head. It's don't worry so much about what the outcome is going to be because you don't have any idea. You don't control that necessarily, right? You only control the way you react to it. Yeah. And I love what you said, control the controllables. That's the one thing I love about sports so much is that's what I think. If you're in the right environment with the right coaches, you learn that at an early age, right? You control what you control in order to have the most success that you can have.
That's right.
And I think that that's so important, and it's so relevant in this conversation too, is you can't worry about the outcome. You got to focus on the process. Right. And you got to focus on what's your reaction going to be to the outcome, whether it's good or bad, because it's intended to be a learning opportunity for all of us.
A learning opportunity, and it's often an adverse opportunity, right? And just what is the mental ability or agility to handle whatever the outcome is.
Yeah. And that makes us better for the next experience.
Yeah.
I think when we
absolutely.
You've got kids and I've got kids, and that's the one thing I think I preach the most as a father is it's not about the outcome as much as it is about the process and what are you doing to learn to be better, even when it hurts.
Yeah.
To learn from that experience and grow from it, because you grow more through the loss, right, than I think you do through the win if you embrace it.
It's true.
In the right way, or through the struggle, through the challenge. I'm using loss as a sports analogy necessarily, but there's wins and losses in every form of life. And I think that's the thing, the biggest message for us to convey to people is, when you think about this whole concept of going and overcoming the fear to go, is just understand that the outcome isn't necessarily the goal.
No, it's not the driving force.
It's the process and the growth that's going to take place because you had the courage just to step out and go forward and know that God's got your back. Regardless. He's not going to put you in a situation that you can't handle, right? All those things that I think we've heard and that we say and that are true about God is that you just got to understand and have that faith to give it a try.
Yeah.
And you're going to be better for it
Mm-hmm.
by going through it.
Amen.
This has been good conversation.
Yeah,
it's gone fast too. What more do you have? Other thoughts do you have around this whole concept of just go?
Yeah.
Right. Putting faith over fear.
Yeah. I just thought I'd share this. I saw this the other day, and it said, God planted something inside of you, water it daily. And I was like, wow.
Yeah.
Okay. How does that apply to me?
Yeah.
Like, what am I watering daily that he's given to me that he wants to blossom?
Yeah. How do you think? How do you water it? What's the watering it to? Is that the prayer? Is that the scripture reading? Is that the meditation?
I think it's a little bit of everything, right? It's when I think about community, I think about how many different communities I'm a part of, right? I'm a part of a basketball community. I'm a part of the Bradley community. I'm a part of Peoria Friendship House community. I'm a part of the CEO and executive directors committee, part of the FCA community. What am I watering most daily for me to be successful in all of the different communities? That's how I kind of processed it. And I'm like, dang, I'm falling short over there. I need to do a little bit of watering over there. Maybe I shouldn't water that one so much. I don't know. I just start to internalize, what am I doing or not doing that's allowing myself, my life with the individuals in my community to be successful.
Yeah, and sometimes the answer is maybe there's too much to water, right?
Yeah.
Too. I think those are important questions for all of us to be thinking about and
that's
looking at our own perspective. I've been wrestling with this in my own life. I think I'm involved in too much.
Yeah,
a lot of professional things and some personal things and things that I've committed to, and I want to be helpful. But I got to learn to say no or to pull back and things and really focus on the areas where I think I can be the most successful. And you got to prioritize things too. So you can't spread yourself too thin. Right. Too. So that's an important thing as well. But that is a great thought to think about.
I do struggle with that.
Yeah, I can see
I'm always in the space and place where I'm like, the word go. Okay. Yeah. It's just filled with a different word. Okay, I got you. Right. I can do it. And then when I'm not able to do it, I always, feel bad or feel like I'm not.
Well, and you're confident in yourself too. You think you can provide positive impact in a lot of different ways too. So that's not a bad thing. Yeah. But it's just really evaluating where are you needed most and prioritizing those things. And I think those are important reflection points for all of us to have as we grow in our humanness and in our professionalism. So
I would agree. As we grow and go.
Yeah. Grow and go. I like it. All right. Well, we're going to wrap up for this time, and we want to thank you all for joining us on our community. We look forward to seeing you next time.